We just got done watching rookies from the 2017 draft put on some of the best seasons for rookies in quite some time. Quite a few had their ups and downs, however their ups were so high, they looked to have the skill and talent to become future contributors. This goes without bringing up the main guys who looked as if though they were born for the moment. Simmons, Tatum, and Mitchell all put up tremendous postseason performances that were remarkable and are forever groundbreaking for how we're going to look at rookies to contribute in the league moving forward. And so now we're here. The 2018 draft can be two things: a draft that doesn't meet a lot of people's expectations, or a draft class so deep that it'll pave a way towards an entire new generation of superstars in the NBA. And honestly, it's an interesting concept that I'm actually interested in exploring, which ultimately led me to coming up with my own mock draft video. Hope y'all enjoy. The Phoenix Suns have been figuring out the direction of their rebuild since the three-guard experiment that they had on their roster that included Goran Dragic, Eric Bledsoe, and Isaiah Thomas. Earned their first overall pick in franchise history, the Phoenix Suns are clearly looking to cash in on a future star to add with Devin Booker. The team has enticing young players such as Josh Jackson, but have also made some errors in draft selections as well. This first overall pick in a draft class like this is important because if Booker is the player we all think he is, then another rising star in the league should make the Suns a consistent top 5 unit for years to come. I think the desire of retaining a future star to pair Devin Booker with the first overall pick leaves them with a lot of options, as in my opinion there's no standout eye-catching number 1 overall pick. A lot of the prospects in this draft have glaring weaknesses which can cause doubt when it comes to who will get picked where. It's a tough decision for any GM to make here, but I think the two safe picks are Ayton and Luka for them, since the build-up for them has rather been consistent and not based on rising draft stock. And with the first overall pick of the NBA draft, I see the Phoenix Suns selecting DeAndre Ayton, the 7'1" center coming out of Arizona. The appeal for DeAndre is there, and if anybody in this draft class, he feels the safest. He's got the athleticism to pair with his freakish size and is actually a pretty polished offensive player. I couldn't imagine wanting to guard a player with his size and capabilities for 36 minutes. He's not a bruiser, but he'll definitely wear you down. He makes very fluid movements for someone that's 7 feet tall, really coordinated, agile, and has a nice touch around the rim. The shot can be very flat at times, and he could force up contested face-up jump shots that are unnecessary. And the biggest flaw when it comes to Ayton on the basketball court is his defensive instincts. He doesn't have a natural feel for defensive rotations and positioning, doesn't make proper rotations from time to time to be a threat when it comes to protecting the rim and altering shots, and isn't steady in pick-and-roll situations, which we exposed immediately in the NBA. Another thing that's been rumored to be troublesome is his drive and motor in games. I don't like diving too much into psychoanalysis when it comes to discussing basketball players, especially when there's a lack of execution or consistent hiccups in a player's game that needs to be pointed out, but it's not promising to have any of those concerns so early in your professional career. Regardless, if Ayton figures it out or not, he's very polished and is too talented to not have an instant impact in the NBA. The early 2000 Kings era seems so long ago as far as them being in any type of good situation, with the organization misutilizing their former draft picks they've had in the past, whether it was due to not managing their talent right, making bad pick after bad pick over and over, or just not putting the right pieces around the team. Another season of incompetence puts them here with the second overall pick in this draft class. They lucked up this year, however, because they were projected to go 7th in the draft, so they basically won the lotto this year. Looking to move on from the whole boogie shenanigans, it's time for the Kings to seize the opportunity and build an identity for this young roster. The Kings have been reported to not take Luka Doncic, and I'm not entirely sure how I feel about that. However, I'm not here to criticize any organization for the decision they make. Like I said before, any GM has the tough decision to make come draft night. With the rumors about the Kings, I believe that they'll go with Marvin Bagley III with the second overall pick. Bagley will give this team a high motor and instant offense with explosiveness. I think Bagley's work in the interior and his capabilities of getting second chance buckets will be the strength of Bagley's game. His range looks so good from behind the arc in college, as he shot about 39% from behind the arc. However, I'm still suspect on how that would translate into the NBA 3. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of his touch around the rim when it comes to Bagley. A lot of his better than brother just comes from being, I'm much more athletic than you. But the apparent concern with Bagley is just how bad he was on the defensive end at the collegiate level in basically any facet of defense. Yes, he has a motor, but the IQ and awareness isn't there, and he isn't freakishly tall to compensate for being just an athlete on that side of the court, so I'm assuming he'll be running the small ball 5. If you're Sacramento, you'll need to make sure you are more than willing to weed out the bad habits early, so you can translate into a winning contributor in the NBA. For the last decade and a half, the Atlanta Hawks have thrived off of being good, but not good enough in the Eastern Conference. After having a roster that won 60 games but eventually losing to the Cavaliers that season, this team has slowly and steadily made moves to rebuild and retool this team to eventually become great. Honestly, I think it's for what it's worth. The Hawks have moved on smoothly, aside from a few bad decisions like throwing Kent Bazemore that bag. And with them picking up guys like Collins and Prince, I believe it's only a matter of time before the Hawks make their way back up in the NBA. It is especially interesting what the Hawks plan to do at number 3, whether they keep or trade the pick, and what's been going under the radar is that they have another mid-round pick and late-round pick as well that they can shop around. The next step for Atlanta that they weren't able to obtain in the last decade and a half is to obtain a superstar in the NBA. I know they are interested in Bamba, even Trae Young with the 3rd pick, which honestly makes some sense here at this selection. There's honestly too many options for the Hawks to do here. They could trade down for more assets or go as a pick like Luka, a Young, or a Bamba. But my best educated guess at this point is that they take Luka Doncic. Luka has been a very popular prospect who's the most accomplished and, in my opinion, the most polished to contribute to a team from day one. When it comes to all aspects offensively, he's the most NBA ready, I want to say. He has good vision, he's good in pick and roll situations, he's been very crafty and knows how to beat you without wowing you with massive explosiveness for his size. And that's honestly my favorite part about Luka. He isn't super flashy, he isn't super explosive, but he can still create, which is an art of basketball that you just can't teach. And his accomplishments speak for himself at the age of 19 and being built for distance 16. Defense and his actual shooting abilities are in question for me. It's not that his shot is woefully off, but rather he tends to settle like a lot of young players do. And for someone who has a high basketball IQ, this should be fixable, but it shouldn't be so glaring. Shooting at a 31% clip is by no means the extreme elite in any fashion, and you can only do so much shot creating as a slower wing. And just being able to keep up with stars in the league will determine just how much of an impact he can have on the defensive side of the court. However, I truly believe that these problems are less alarming than the majority, if not all, the prospects in the draft. He won't be a bust in any stretch of the imagination, and if I'm wrong, well then that's just something laughed about over the years. Much like the Hawks, the Grizzlies' knit and grit persona made them a competitive team the past several years. However, they hit the injury bug this past season and are now stuck between a rock and a hard place when it comes to who would they select with this pick. I believe that this organization believes that this roster has talent already to compete in the league with Mike Conley and Marc Gasol. This is a perfect opportunity for them to obtain a young player in case they have to take that next step, which would be to start fresh and take a quality young prospect and do so while making the playoff in the next couple of years. With the 4th overall pick, I believe that the Grizzlies are selecting Jaren Jackson Jr. Jaren Jackson doesn't pop to you offensively, and this is partly due to his role in Michigan State and partly because he's just so raw offensively. Doesn't have much strengths on that end of the court, and much like with Bagley's shooting, I'm not sure if his shooting will immediately translate into the NBA. However, where he shows signs of enormous potential on the defensive end, where in my opinion he's the best defensive prospect in this draft by far. He's basically filled all the prerequisites of becoming a top-notch defender in today's NBA, and that goes a long way in the game of basketball. He can protect the rim, hang with bigs, and also switch out and guard the perimeter really well. Even if he never figures it out offensively, it's safe to say that he'll be a dope player in this league for years to come and a future Defensive Player of the Year candidate. After failing to build a contending roster following the 2011 NBA Finals, the Dallas Mavericks have acknowledged that they're finally willing to tank and start the rebuilding process, which probably shouldn't have been the case a few years back, but I suppose now is a better time than ever. It's obvious that Dirk is way past his prime, and aside from Dennis Smith Jr., who I'm not entirely sold on, this team should obviously take advantage of this draft pick. They've been rumored to take a big in the draft, and I know Mark Cuban's intentions are to tank and rebuild through the draft, so I'm not so sure that this team is willing to sign a big from free agency. This leads me to believe that the Mavericks are going to select Mohamed Bamba with the pick. First off, I just want to shout out my man Bo. He's my favorite prospect in this draft because that Mo Bamba song goes crazy, and we shared the same birthday, so we tight for that. But me being intrigued with Bamba goes deeper than just similarities in his song. I actually love hearing him talk about the game of basketball and just how aware he is on the areas he needs to improve on to become an all-time great. His understanding of several elements of the game was highly impressive, and I'm always going to be high on guys with high IQ since evaluating the game of basketball is an aspiration of mine. But also, he's just built like a demigod. He's not super tall, standing at 7'11", but my guy has a 7-time wingspan, which is crazy to consider, and he's pretty fast as well, having a sprint time that surpassed Russell Westbrook and Dwayne Wade. He showed signs of promise of shooting at UT, but it wasn't lights out by any means, and he needed to improve. He wasn't very well-rounded as an offensive big, loved to face up, which was promising, but anything else with the back to the basket was shaky. Wasn't always willing to put himself in the best scenarios either. He's agile, makes a good rim runner, but part of what makes AD elite at it is his ability to catch the basketball, which Bamba wasn't necessarily the best at. And aside from pick and roll situations defensively, he's a really, really good defender, which will make him, at the very least, an impactful player on the defensive end if it translates to the NBA. He has insane upside, no doubt, and could be an all-time big man if the cards play right for him. I'm gonna keep this one short and sweet. This team sucks. They have no sense of direction, and they've been poorly ran for Lord knows how long. This has made them easily one of the more disappointing franchises in the common era. What they do in this draft is yet to be determined. However, I don't believe that they'll build this team in the right direction anytime soon, regardless of their pick. With Michael Porter Jr.'s draft stock rising here, I can see a scenario where the Magic go with who they think is the best player in the draft and select Michael Porter. Or I believe that they'll select Trae Young with this pick as well. But I'm about to assume that the Magic will shock the world of basketball here and take Colin Sexton with the 6th overall pick. I know it all seems odd, and I get the criticism of Sexton, I really do. But look, Sexton has talent. His erratic play scares me the most because he plays it really fast, which is fine at times. But honestly, I can't see how that isn't going to be used to his advantage. I'd assume the biggest what if is his size like 6'1", since he's not the best athlete either. He'll be able to score, but whether it's efficient or not is probably on the no side. He's not very good at playmaking, but defense should be a strong suit if he can actually show focus on that side of the court. All in all, you're getting a fringe starter to a few-time All-Star out of Colin Sexton, but he'll provide some pretty cool moments that won't make Orlando entirely irrelevant. This may or might not be a wise decision for Orlando, but Sexton could be a solid player in the NBA. Chicago hit the phase of rebuild. However, unlike most teams, I believe Chicago amped up their rebuilding process the best out of all teams we mentioned so far, and it's not even close, especially for how soon they decided to rebuild. They already have a young, promising player in Lauri Markkanen, as he gave the Bulls a solid 15-7 his rookie year, while having some lights-out shooting games as well. Honestly, I believe regardless of where they decided to go with this pick, they don't lose in this scenario, just because in general they have one of the better young cores in the NBA. In my opinion, this is the perfect opportunity for Fred Hoiberg to implement his fast-paced offense he introduced by selecting Trae Young from Oklahoma. He's dominant in size in any facet. However, this kid is a wild card as to where his talent will lie. But I know one thing for sure: the kid's got a bag, arguably the best bag in the entire draft. I had my doubts about his play style and how possessions became too erratic for Young when pressure was put. But when he can shoot the ball like he can, and when he has the vision he has, that's something hard to ignore. And it's hard to just insist that will make him an immediate bust just because we've seen shooters in the past fail in the NBA. I've in the past compared his game to Westbrook's, but instead of athleticism being the strength of his game, it was Trae shooting, and I somewhat still hold that stance. His team wasn't very good at all, actually. However, dominating the ball like Trae did can lead to many bad offensive tendencies that need to be nipped in the butt before he goes too far into being branded with hero ball corporations. He plays at a very nice pace though, knows when to slow down, to speed up, and has very nice point guard tendencies, which is encouraging to see. However, the turnovers are alarming, and no, you can't double Trae as viciously as they did in college and make him get rid of the basketball. However, those looks won't get any easier, which is why having the ball every single possession isn't a good look for him. And he'll never be good at defense. I think him being an active defender will take his game overall to a whole nother level. However, as of right now, he's probably the worst overall defender in this draft class. I think Trae at 7 will be a great pickup for the Chicago Bulls, and it'll be exciting to see him paired up with Lauri Markkanen in the future. If you're the Cleveland Cavaliers, you clearly don't know what LeBron's plans are yet this offseason. However, by no means you draft a player at this point because of Bron's fit and whatnot. You just have to draft based on upside and potential as a basketball player. If you trade this pick, then your route of getting younger was pointless, which you shouldn't do. So attempt to draft somebody with this 8 overall pick. I don't know who Cleveland goes with, but I am projecting that they go with Michael Porter Jr. here. I think that this move flirts with the idea that maybe they could persuade with LeBron to coming back because they still obtained the college powerhouse name. However, he still has upside and you can use him moving forward regardless. A bona fide scorer from anywhere on the court who poses a mismatch being 6'10". His handles aren't fluid, tends to settle, and isn't great around the rim when he does attack the basket, goes with size. I think those are things he has to touch up on if he wants to be an elite scorer. And defensively, he's problematic to say the least. I don't know if it was necessarily because of the back injuries, but he was always upright in his stance and was able to stay in front of a lot of people, even in the high school level. And then his awareness stinks on the end too, which needs to be cleaned up fast if he's going to be productive on both ends. I don't see busts, but I do see people potentially being disappointed in the player Porter might become in the pros. He's very fluid, and I know that he can score at a high level. When it comes to ball handling, shot selection, and defense, he doesn't look to be as advanced as his peers in this category. And obviously, the biggest concern is the back injury and how it affects his career going on. I think he'll be a fine pro, but I'm not sure if he's the KD type player that some casuals are expecting him to be. I think we should just assume as of right now, Michael Porter is a pure scorer in the league who you can put anywhere on the court 1 through 4 and he'll have no problem getting buckets. The New York Knickerbockers. Since I started avidly watching basketball around the mid-2000s, this entire organization has stunk. The epitome of incompetence aside from the couple years Melo had success in. was short-lived before Melo had them in the lottery a few seasons later. With Kristaps being the saving grace for this roster, the Knicks look to add on to their historic legacy and build a new dynasty finally. Kristaps is clearly the guy moving forward. It only makes sense to now put a team around him and take your chances with finding perfect players to play around him. I think the best choice for the Knicks would be to select the best player at this point, which would be Wendell Carter Jr. from Duke University. I think Wendell is a player with the capability to impact the game in numerous ways without having to be elite in one area. He has an IQ that allows him to make reads that are impressive for a guy his size. He can face up and shoot the ball from behind the arc and is good down low, and can be on the court since he can defend as well. He's not the athlete of the other bigs in the draft, isn't the most aggressive, and can always see the game better. However, being able to be that guy on a team that contributes in multiple ways will be beneficial for any team moving forward. His IQ and his, unique style of play actually intrigues me, and I think he's one of my favorite players in the draft. All in all, Wendell Carter's ceiling isn't the highest. However, his floor is very high. I think he'll be a contributing starting for a contending team, and if the New York Knicks want to take that step, the next step is to find guys who are willing to contribute in winning ways, which I think Wendell Carter will provide for them perfectly. The process is moving along very steadily now, and it's been a while since the days of tanking intentionally under the reins of Sam Hinkie. After such a successful season, what this pick amounts to will determine just how much better this team will be over the next decade, as they rebuild this team to be a contending team for years to come, which is exciting because it's an Eastern Conference team that has finally stepped up as an organization. Being able to take McHale Bridges is the perfect scenario for the Sixers, who are searching to build a roster of a whole lot of ball movement and shooting. The way the Sixers took the league by storm was astonishing, and I could see how McHale only makes them that much more dynamic moving forward. He can shoot the lights out of the ball in the set shot, and he's a pretty active defender too, fitting the stereotypical 3-and-D build wing in the NBA. I don't think McHale is any kind of shot creator, but I believe McHale can put the ball down and make moves when needed. And he's also fairly more athletic than the guys that the Sixers are playing, such as JJ Redick, Marco Bellinelli. So the Sixers won't be such a disadvantage on the wing anymore defensively. It'll be very interesting to see what kind of player he molds into moving forward as a contributor, six-man starter, or even a borderline star player. McHale can be very good in this league if he really wants to be, but he will have to work on getting the shot off as a shot creator and actually staying in front of people at defense and not relying on his freakishly long wingspan. My final thoughts on this draft class is that this one has the potential to be a very deep one for years to come, and that's the side I'm rolling with. I think this draft sparks a new beginning of talent coming into the league. Y'all can let me know in the comments your take on this draft class, and prepare for it to be very active, as I'm sure trades that are going to happen will shatter all of my predictions. It's been your boy TSM, and I'm out for today, y'all. Peace.